and welcome to Forbidden Talk. I'm Jenny Hammond, and today we're exploring the supernatural. In the West, possession, exorcism, black magic, jinns, and the evil eye are the stuff of Hollywood movies.
In the beginning, three were created. Man, made of clay. Angels, made of light. And a third.
But in the Middle East, jinns and the evil eye are almost a way of life. A 2012 PW Research Centre survey showed that belief in jinn across the Middle East and North Africa's Muslim population is widespread, with 86% believing in Morocco, 73% in Lebanon, and 69% in Egypt. In certain countries, belief in the evil eye is even greater, with 90% of Tunisians and 72% of Iraqis believing. And this belief has a strong effect on society. The evil eye is most commonly attributed to envy, so many people will hide their good fortune for fear of attracting it. If you go to Egypt, for example, and comment appreciatively at a newborn baby, the parents will quickly say, "Mashallah, God has willed it," concerned that the compliment might shroud a person's jealousy and attract the evil eye. Jinns, on the other hand, known as genies in the West, are derived from the Quran, but far from being the blue mythical creatures that appear after rubbing a lamp, they are believed to be the only other rational being besides humans and capable of mischief and even possession. The Quran teaches that humans were made from clay, angels from light, and jinns from fire, so as such the jinns have the ability of free thought and can be good or evil. For Westerners, it might all sound far-fetched, but jinn possession is not unlike how we understand evil spirits in Christianity, and the solution to possession is similar to that of Catholic exorcisms, but is a form of Quranic healing called Ruqyah. It's believed that Ruqyah can also be used to lift the curse of the evil eye or remove black magic.
What I will say is that if you see something, don't fight it. Don't block anything out. If you feel something, again, don't fight it, don't block it out. Brother, can you just open your eyes for me? Yeah, okay. Do you feel like sleeping?
I feel sleeping. I feel like sleep.
You feel like sleeping? Okay, then sleep and close your eyes.
Ruqyah is basically classified as spiritual cleansing, where somebody you take somebody's spiritual state, say from a state of darkness to one which is of light. So it's like a cleansing process.
Yeah. So this is oud, and we put oud on the patient, and it's very strong smelling. So the idea being is that if anyone is possessed by jinn and stuff, then this is like a smoke screen, it kind of like flushes them out. So we're just making preparation because we don't know if somebody has or if they haven't, but we'll know during the process.
Okay, well, how exactly does it work?
It works in the sense that it's done through the shifa of Allah, because the shifa means the cure, it comes through Allah, and it comes through recitation of the Quran. It's the Quran that we actually use, it's prayers from the Holy Book.
What sort of people do you help?
Anybody and everybody. It's not anything which is gender specific or faith specific. So anybody who feels that they need to have Ruqyah, they need to have spiritual cleansing, will basically come to us.
Okay. Well, why would somebody be targeted by a jinn, in the first place? What sort of people get these problems?
Okay, so the best analogy that I can give is like if you imagine a ruler. You have a ruler which is from 0 centimeters to 30 centimeters, and each one of us will be on a spiritual journey. Some people will be on the right hand side, which are those who have quite powerful light, and you have those people on the left hand side whose light is very dim. Now people's light can be dim because either the environment that they're in, or because somebody has deliberately targeted them and they have done black magic, i.e. they've become a victim of black magic.
How would somebody know if they have, black magic on them or a jinn possession? What are the signs?
Okay, so some of the common signs is that you'll see that people's face will, regardless of their skin colour, will generally have a darkness about it. One, they'll have a darkness. Two, that they'll have a sleep paralysis, i.e. at night time they won't be able to sleep. They'll feel as if something's sitting on their chest, or they feel that something's actually tugging them. They'll find that they'll have certain blockages in their life. They'll lose their temper very quickly. What else is when they're trying to listen to the Quran, or they're trying to do any form of ibadah, that they just won't be able to do it.
Well, how do you know if it's worked, if the jinns left or the black magic's left?
Okay, that's a very good question. For me personally, when somebody comes in, I will look at their spiritual state. I.e., for example, I'll look at their spiritual face, and their spiritual face will be, they will have a sense of darkness. After the ruqyah, which I explained is cleansing, you will see that after the process that they will have a form of light, and if the light is present on their face, then that's evident to say that the ruqyah has worked and that they've actually now become clear.
What did he say?
Yeah, it's good.
Right. Did you hear what he just said?
It's gone.
It's gone. Did you see anything?
Yeah, it's all the eyes. I can feel. Okay.
Okay, during the
No,
process,
no, I didn't see anything. Sorry, I don't tell lie. I didn't see anything.
you didn't say anything. Okay, did you feel anything?
Yeah, I feel body, something.
What did you feel
Yeah,
on your body?
something was pinching you.
Some signs are very overt when you're dealing with jinn possession, because the jinn can actually manifest and they can actually engage in conversation with that person as well, or certainly with the ruqyah. I had an experience. There was a young lady who I did. It was literally about half an hour in the ruqyah. Her face kind of like completely changed. You know, it was like, her face was very contorted. And then the jinn literally said, "Stop reading. Who are you? Why are you here? Why are you here? Stop reading. Go away." And that jinn actually gave the name of the person who'd actually done the black magic, or who had actually sent, and it transpired it was actually her mother-in-law that had sent the jinn to break up the partnership or the marriage between her and her husband. But me, as a general, I try not to speak to jinn in general, because it just places the patient under more stress, and you can never trust anything that a jinn says anyway.
Do you think that jinn possession or the evil eye or something is very much a culture-bound syndrome? For example, why don't non-religious or non-believers get possessed?
Okay, that's a very good question again. At the end of the day, faith does play an important part of it, okay? So, for example, if you believe in God, then you're going to believe in His creation. I, as Muslim, or Muslims, will believe that God created spirits. If you have no religious platform and you don't genuinely believe in God, then you're not going to believe that, you know, spirits exist and stuff like that. Well, if you don't believe spirits exist, then you ain't going to believe that they obviously are affected.
After our session at the Ruqyah Centre, Sheikh Mohammed was sent a text by his first patient, thanking him and explaining that he felt the black magic had been lifted from him and that the Ruqyah had worked. However, his second patient said he felt no effect at all. But whether real or imaginary, for many the belief itself in the supernatural is incredibly powerful and can be dangerous. An extreme example took place in 2012 with the murder of 21-year-old Naila Mumtaz in Birmingham. Birmingham Crown Court was told that Mrs. Mumtaz's in-laws and husband, who were convicted of her killing, thought she was possessed by evil spirits and that she was killed as they attempted to drive out a harmful jinn. Earlier, I spoke with Kerry-Ann Jones, an old Catholic deacon who works with law enforcement and counter-terrorism agencies in relation to the use and investigation of religious and superstitious-based intimidation and harassment used to facilitate organised crime and terrorist activities by the threat of jinns and the evil eye, and also using the threat of jinns in spousal abuse. Well, joining me on Skype now is Kerry-Ann Jones, who's an old Catholic deacon. Kerry, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's lovely to join you.
Well, maybe you can start by telling me, how old is the belief in jinn possession, the evil eye and black magic compared to religion?
I think both of them go in tangent with one another. You tend to find that there are records in cuneiform tablets that refer to evil or bad things, and also they refer to their own gods at the same time. It could even go back before that, because it could be involved in some of the cave paintings that have been found in Spain.
Well, there is also the concern that, especially in the Middle East, it's more socially acceptable to be possessed by a jinn than it is to have mental health problems. So do you think that people can actually go to have Ruqyah treatment and then overlook an underlying medical health or mental health problem?
Oh yeah, there's no trouble with that whatsoever, because you see, in Mideast and a lot of other countries, even in the West, you find that if a family member has mental health problems, then other family members could be shunned for business, could be shunned for marriage, things like that. So it's a lot easier to blame someone else. It is a lot easier, and also it's a factor of, it can cover up for criminal offences, because a guy goes to work, comes home, batters 7 bells out of his wife. It weren't me, the devil made me do it. And he might think that he could get away with actual criminal offences, saying almost that he's possessed.
Well, you actually are training to be an exorcist, so you obviously, you know, believe quite strongly in these kind of unexplainable, you know, jinns or demons or whatever you want to call them. So do you think you can actually turn it the other way round? Are people going to sort of medical professionals when in fact they should be going to a Ruqyah healer, or they should be going to an exorcist?
Yeah, that very often happens, because you see, science likes to think that it knows everything. But science really is comparatively new. We've been around a lot longer than most scientific discoveries, and there are things we just don't understand, and only the really arrogant think that we know everything. So yeah, you can get someone, and also it can be frightening to mental health, especially mental health people, when it comes to possession and things like that, because no one teaches them what to do or even when to take someone seriously. Because it's, some people claim to have religious visions. That could be a straight hallucination. They could be living in an area, I don't know, with high electromagnetic fields, which can cause auditory hallucinations as well as visual hallucinations. So you can never tell, and doctors aren't really trained well enough on, let's say, fringe science more than anything else.
Well, what's been your experience of spirits and exorcisms and that kind of thing? Can you tell us how you've experienced this?
Right. The reason I became an exorcist was because of one example of something that happened. I, just as a person, just as a friend, a family, was asked to attend an exorcism. A young dot of a boy, he's only about 9 years old. He wasn't doing well in school, wouldn't clear up his bedroom. The grandmother was, shall I say, very religious, charismatic Christian, and she insisted that the boy was possessed. He wasn't, he was just a little so-and-so who was starting to grow up. The mother was getting quite frightened about the situation, so she asked me to attend, and it was the most frightening thing I'd ever seen. Because there was a little dot of a child in the middle of a room with all these adults shouting at him. I know, things like, "You are possessed, you're evil, demon, leave this child." And the poor, as I said, the poor dot was terrified. He really was. And he wet himself. And I'll tell you this, the way that they were carrying on, because you're talking about 6 adults to 1 child, standing in a circle around him. I would have wet myself if I was him. To be quite blunt, I would have. And I thought, no, that's wrong. That is an abuse of religion. It's an abuse of care. It's child abuse.
Well, your work actually focuses on the darker side of jinn possession and how people can use this, criminals can use this against people. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, again, that case started with a child who was frightened. To control people that are trafficked around the world, but mainly it's from Southeast Asia and the Arab states into Europe, you find that the people are told, if you speak to anyone, if you give any information to the authorities, you will have the evil eye put on your family. It's used to control people and to shut them up, to stop them giving evidence. And you have not only trafficked people, but I've known a case of baby farming, where the people, the women and girls that were producing the babies were too afraid to ask for assistance, because they were told that their relatives back in Pakistan or the other ones in Saudi would have the evil eye put on them and their relatives would die. And they believed it. You've got girls, I think there was a recent case in, I think it was London, where a woman was kept and she was told that if she ran away, then her family would have the evil eye put on them and would die. And if you come from a superstitious culture, then yes, of course you'll believe it because it's part of your culture. It's not only religion.
Well, how do you target these criminals? How do you help these people? How do you, especially when somebody believes so strongly in something, how would you combat that belief to help them?
The first way of helping them is getting the police, the border agencies and the authorities to accept that these people are genuinely frightened, because it's all too easy for us. Someone comes in, they refuse to give evidence in an investigation, and they say, well, I won't say anything because my auntie in Pakistan will die. You get a couple of coppers standing there saying, oh yeah, I believe in that one. But the person is really afraid. So it's education of the law enforcement, police, the judiciary, because they could be too afraid to go into the witness stand. Border agencies and everyone else. And that's where you start, because you see, once people understand that a witness is afraid, then they give support to the witness, and then the witness can talk to, say someone like me or an imam or anyone who will try and talk them through that, no, the religion that they hold so precious is being abused by these criminals. The criminals are doing things they got no right to do. The criminals have no right to abuse someone's religion, which is what they're doing.
Because I suppose jinn possession and the evil eye, these aren't really considered religions. So maybe they would even be cast aside as superstitions. So do you think this can cause a problem?
Oh, can't it just? The same as walking under a ladder and all the other things. Oh, there was another case in the US where someone claimed to have summoned up something because they'd stood and said a ritual into a mirror. And everything is superstition. Even religion is superstition, really, because it's all just based on belief. But the abuse of the Quran is wrong, because it's a beautiful book, it's a beautiful work, it's a very precious and holy work, and no one's got the right to manipulate that for their own criminal ends.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today. It's been really fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you ever so much for having me on the show, Jenny.
Welcome back to Forbidden Talk on the topic of jinns and the evil eye. We've just heard from Kerry-Ann Jones, who spoke of how the belief in the supernatural can be used to manipulate and control people. But now to talk about jinns and the evil eye from a more scientific angle is Dr. Amin Salem, an NHS paediatrician hailing from Egypt. Dr. Salem, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, I've been looking into jinns, and as a doctor, scientifically, I don't know what you think about jinns, but you also have the cultural background from Egypt. So do you believe in the existence of jinns and the evil eye?
Regarding the jinn, evil eyes is too different. Yeah. If I'd like to start with the jinn, yes, there was evidence from the Quran, that's the holy book for Muslims, that the jinn do exist. And the evidence in the Quran, there is even a surah, which is a verse in the Quran, with the name of jinn. That's why I do believe in jinn. Regarding the evil eye, also it exists, which is, again, I believe in that because it exists in the Quran. Allah, God advises in the Quran that it is existing. And there is ways of avoiding the evil eye and avoiding the jinn.
Okay. Well, what are those ways? How can you avoid them?
Of course. The ways, again, the ways that Allah, God, advises what to do, and Rasul, the Prophet, Sayyidina Muhammad, والسلام, advises what to do about these things. For example, the evil eye, it is well known fact that somebody can give an evil eye to another person. And how to avoid this? There is a special dua. It's written in the Quran and also written in the Hadith. Hadith is the Rasul, the Prophet, Sayyidina Muhammad, Prophet Muhammad والسلام, advised us to do and to say when we worry about the evil eye. So in saying this and believing in it, there is usually no effect on the evil eye.
Okay. Well, all your experience then is from the Quran, what's written, or do you have personal experience? Have you ever witnessed a jinn or the evil eye?
Personally, I never witnessed a jinn at all. And the evil eye, yes, there is in many occasions. Yes, when for example, I've had my new car, and I did not recite the Quran, the appropriate verses, and I did not make the appropriate dua, which is what the Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ advised us to do, and I was scratched because immediately somebody said, "Oh, that's a very nice car," and I got immediate scratch.
Well, we've spoken about the evil eye, but how do jinns affect people? If you don't do the prayers or the proper precautions, how do you see them affecting people?
Now, this is a very, very good question, because there is a huge overlap between what's actually happening and the cultural background of the person who are afflicted by whatever afflictions. For example, in parts of Africa, they are Muslim countries, and a child or a man or a woman afflicted by an illness or disease, they attribute this illness to the jinn, and they start their own cultural stuff, smokes and all this, they hoping that the jinn will come out of her, she's possessed. Usually this is really incorrect, because this man or woman or patient have most likely mental illness or other physical illness, and it should be treated by the specialists.
Well, I did read somewhere that in the Middle East it's more socially acceptable perhaps to be possessed by a jinn than it might be to admit to have mental health problems.
Yes.
So do you think that a belief in jinn or jinns could actually cloud the fact or stop somebody who has a problem seeking medical help?
Unfortunately, it's a cultural thing rather than religious thing, and again, it's perhaps due to lack of the religious background of those who feel it's better to blame it on the jinn, or it's better to say, oh, that's the jinn, or that's the person who's possessed, rather than admitting that this is really, it's a mental illness, it's not really a jinn, because it's easily and socially acceptable for these groups to, oh, that's a jinn, rather than say it's a mentally ill, because sometimes when you say mentally ill, people interpret it as crazy, which is not right. Mentally ill, somebody who's mentally ill is different, like have a stomach ulcer or appendicitis, but had a problem in his mental health.
Well, then how would you know if it's a spiritual problem or if it is actually a medical problem?
Right, the spiritual problems, really, it's rare these days, and we don't really see these things. It does happen, and we believe in it because it's written in the Quran.
Yeah.
That's why we believe in it. But the actual instance, again, it's very difficult to measure it, because in these countries and these communities, it's very difficult to really measure the instance. As you can measure, you choose the community, like in the UK, Isle of Wight, it's a closed community, you can measure anything there, health-wise and cardiac illnesses, cardiac disease. This community is very difficult. So it is happening, but very, very rare.
Something I think that confuses me mostly about the subject of jinns and the evil eye is, if they do exist, then why is it just sort of people from the Middle East, Muslims, who believe in them? Why doesn't it affect everybody in the world if it exists? Is it a culture-bound syndrome?
America, every day we hear about tornadoes and all these things. Are these jinn who are making these tornadoes, or damaging the houses and damaging Florida, for example, the coast of Florida? No, people are more of people in the West are more ready to understand that everything is physical. They need a proof. Anything is yeah. So they call it, this is the nature. Yeah, they attribute to as a nature event. But who controls the nature event? That comes to your belief. If you're a religious person, whether Muslim or a Jew or a Christian, you will 100% believe that there is somebody there, which is God, who controls the nature. Yeah, this is in all religious backgrounds.
But you're also a doctor, so come from a scientific background. So putting the Quran aside for a moment, is there any other proof, scientific proof perhaps, that these sort of things exist, or is it purely based on, you know, a belief system?
I think this is purely based on a belief system, because if you want to prove it that it's really happening, you need to have quality studies, i.e. randomized control studies. For example, take a point of the Ruqyah Sharia. It's easily proven by if you can take two groups of people who have same illnesses, and then you have a group A and then group B. Group A, you give them the medical treatment, and the group B, you give them the medical treatment plus the Ruqyah Sharia, which is the intervention. And then you compare the outcome of this, and you see how your intervention is working or not. I am definite, although this study doesn't exist, but I'm definite that the group B, who has the Ruqyah, will heal faster and feel better, much better sooner than the other group.
Well, in the medical profession and mental health, are there any unexplainable things that doctors can't actually, you know, say what it is that maybe could be attributed to jinns?
Let's divide that question to two parts. In the medical field, sometimes not everything that we as doctors can explain. Science cannot explain everything, but with experience and help of evidence-based medicine, we can come to some sort of conclusion that, for example, the effect E or A most likely attributed to ABC. That's most likely, yeah, not exactly. To that most likely attributed. And in medicine, there is lots of gray areas that we don't have really an exact answer to it. However, we get the answer with two things, with the science and experience. Regarding the how to get this answer from a different perspective, I think it depends on the person, the belief, what the person's beliefs and backgrounds are. And if that person would not let the cultural background overlap the religious background.
Thank you so much. That was so interesting.
My pleasure.
Well, that's all the time we've got left for today, but now it's your turn to join the discussion. You can get in touch and send your comments to forbiddentalk@levant.tv or find us on Facebook. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.